She stands at the mine entrance, with her daughter pressed against her side. The wind comes in waves, each one colder than the last. Her breath turns to ice crystals before it leaves her mouth. The girl is shaking, not just from cold, but from understanding. This is home now, this hole in the mountain. Behind them, the town of Blackwood fades into grey. Ahead, nothing but darkness, and the stories everyone whispered. They said people disappeared in the Blackwood mine. They said it was cursed. They said if you go in, you don't come out the same. Maybe not at all. She has $150 in her pocket, a deed in her backpack, a child who trusts her to keep them alive. Winter in the mountains doesn't care about hope. It doesn't care about promises. It kills slow or fast, depending on the day. But here's what nobody knew. The curse wasn't real, and the mine wasn't empty. The question burns in her chest as she reaches for the wooden door.
What was so valuable that someone sealed it away? What would make a family desperate enough to steal everything from her? And why would they leave it protected by a ghost story? She pulls. The hinges scream. Cold air rushes out like something waking up. Her daughter squeezes her hand tighter. "Come on," she whispers. "We're going home." 2 years ago, she had a different life. A job at the bank, steady, quiet. The kind of job that let you plan things. A lease renewal, a vacation, your child's future. Her mother got sick in March. By June, she was gone. The funeral brought everyone together. Her siblings, her cousins, the aunts nobody liked but tolerated. They gathered in the kitchen of her mother's house while she was still arranging flowers at the graveyard. That's when they started moving things around, looking at things, talking in voices that stopped the moment she walked in. Her mother had left a will. Simple, fair. A small inheritance divided equally among her 3 children.
And the deed to the Blackwood mine, a property in the family for 60 years, worthless for 40 of them.
"Sign the deed over to us," her brother said 2 days after the funeral. He had papers already prepared. "We'll handle it." "What do you mean, handle it? The mine's just debt, taxes, assessment fees. You don't want that headache. We'll take it off your hands." Her sister nodded. Her cousins nodded. They all looked at her with the same expression, pity mixed with something sharper, something that said they already knew what she would do. "I'll think about it," she said. But they didn't give her time to think. The next morning, her landlord called. He'd received a notice from a legal firm, some complication with the property taxes on the mine. Nothing to worry about, but it might affect her credit. How did she want to handle it? She didn't understand. Not yet. By that afternoon, her brother called again. His voice had changed.
Less patient.
"The lawyers say this could get messy, could take years, could cost you everything. Just sign, let us deal with it." She was tired. She had a child. She had a job, but not much money. The idea of legal battles made her stomach hurt. So she signed. The papers went to the lawyers. Her brother said he'd handle the fees. That was kind of him, she thought. That was what family did. Except it wasn't. Within 3 weeks, the inheritance was gone. Not split. Gone. Her brother filed claims against her mother's estate. Complex accounting, he explained, liens on the property, legal fees. By the time the smoke cleared, there was nothing left for her. The mine deed was theirs now. And she was back to rent day with $500 in her account. She kept the job. She paid the bills. But the calculations had shifted. Her ex missed child support again. Her landlord raised the rent. 1 month she came home and her car wouldn't start. $3,000 to fix.
She didn't have $3,000. The job came next. Not fired, something worse. Restructuring. Her position was eliminated. They gave her a severance check and a handshake. 2 weeks later, the rent came due. By autumn, she and her daughter were in a shelter. By November, they were living in her brother's cast-off minivan, parked in a lot behind a grocery store. That's when she found the deed. She'd kept it, stuffed in her backpack like a joke the universe was playing on her. A property she didn't own, in a town that wanted nothing to do with her, sitting worthless on the county records. Or so she thought. She found the county records office on a Tuesday morning. The clerk looked at her the way people do when they're trying to place you, recognizing the shape of your situation without asking. Homeless, desperate, looking for something.
"The Blackwood mine deed," she said. "I need to verify ownership." The clerk's face changed. "You own that?" "I think so. Can you check?" 20 minutes later, it was confirmed. The deed was real. The property was legally hers. No liens, no claims, just abandoned land in a town that wanted to forget it existed. She should have felt something. Relief, hope. Instead, she felt watched. The diner on Main Street was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew your business before you told them. She went in to use the bathroom and ended up sitting at the counter with coffee she couldn't afford. The waitress, a woman maybe her age, sat across from her with a look that meant she'd already heard. "You're after the mine," she said. Not a question. "I own it." "Nobody owns it. It owns you." The waitress told her the story. The Blackwood Mine had been a company operation in the 1920s. 37 people died in a collapse. Bodies never fully recovered. The town closed it and tried to forget. It worked for 60 years. Then, in the 1970s, some kids decided to explore it. One didn't come back. Search parties went in and came out shaken. No body, no explanation, just missing. Since then, the stories got worse. People heard voices, saw figures in the darkness. Miners who died in 1923 calling from somewhere deep below. The mine kept what it took. "You're not going in there," the waitress said. "I don't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice. You're just making the wrong one." She left before the coffee got cold. The hike to the mine took 3 hours. Her daughter was at the shelter with a social worker who'd given her a window of time, back by 5, or she'd call it a welfare check. She moved fast, following the county map and her phone's GPS through territory that didn't want her. The entrance appeared suddenly, a slope of broken rock leading to a massive wooden door, boarded up with planks that had weathered to grey. Snow drifted around it. Behind it, nothing but darkness. She tried the boards first. They were old but solid. She found a fallen branch, wedged it between the planks, and pushed. The sound that came out was violent, wood screaming, nails tearing. On the third heave, a gap opened wide enough to slip through. The cold that hit her was different from outside air. This was the cold of deep places, places the sun never touched. It smelled like iron and damp stone and something older, something that had been waiting a long time. Her eyes adjusted. The entrance chamber opened above her like a cathedral. Massive timber beams crossed the ceiling. Mining equipment stood frozen mid-task, a drill press, metal carts on tracks, tools scattered on wooden benches. Rust covered everything. Dust settled thick enough that her footprints marked the floor. She moved deeper. That's when she found it. A sleeping bag in a side chamber, rolled up carefully. Empty cans stacked in a neat pile. A kerosene lamp with oil still inside. Recent. Within the past year, maybe. Someone had sheltered here. The side chamber itself was perfect. Dry, protected from wind, far enough from the entrance that cold wouldn't reach. She could see it immediately. A place where she and her daughter could survive winter. Blankets on the stone floor. Water from snow melted in a pot. Not comfort, but not death either. She was turning to leave when she saw it. A keypad. Modern. Clean. Mounted on the rock face like it belonged in a laboratory instead of a tomb. Her hand moved toward it without permission. Next to the keypad, wedged behind a loose stone, was something else. An envelope. Sealed. Addressed in careful handwriting. To whoever finds this. She didn't open it yet. Not in the darkness. Not alone.
But as she climbed back out, her heart was already racing. The curse, she was thinking, wasn't real, but someone had buried something that was. That night, she made a decision.
She went back to the shelter and told the social workers she'd found temporary housing, a friend's place, safe, warm. It wasn't a lie, exactly. It was a hope shaped like a lie. The worker looked skeptical but didn't push. Winter beds were full. One less person needing a cot meant one more space for someone else. She returned to the mine with her daughter 3 days later, after picking up supplies at a discount grocery, canned goods, bottled water, blankets that smelled like chemical storage. The girl didn't ask questions. She'd learned not to. They found the side chamber and made it livable. Sleeping bags spread on the stone, a camping lantern creating a circle of orange light. Outside, snow fell thick enough to muffle the world. Days blurred together. She explored the mine carefully, documenting everything in a notebook, room layouts, ventilation shafts, areas that felt unstable. Her daughter attended the local school using the address of a shelter coordinator who owed her a favor. Mornings, they'd climb out into winter and head downhill. Afternoons, they'd return to the stone cathedral beneath the earth. But the keypad never left her mind. She'd pulled the envelope free and read it in daylight. Inside was a key card, the kind used in corporate buildings, and a handwritten note she barely understood. To whoever finds this, you're running from something. So was I. Try the year she was born. You'll know who I mean. She didn't know who the writer meant. She had no context, no explanation. Just a cryptic instruction and a keycard that felt impossibly modern in her hands. On the 7th night, standing in front of that keypad with her daughter asleep behind her, she tried her mother's birth year. 1952. The rock didn't move. She waited. Nothing. Her hands shook. She tried again, slower. 1952. That's when it happened. A grinding sound from deep in the stone. Not like machinery, like the mountain itself was waking up. A seam appeared where no seam had been, barely visible, but there. Cold air rushed from the crack, so cold it made her gasp. Not the cold of winter, something different, something preserved. The passage beyond was narrow. She had to turn sideways to fit through. Her phone light caught on moisture on the stone walls, and then on something else. Metal railings. An actual handrail bolted to the rock. This wasn't natural. This was built. The passage descended. She moved slowly, her daughter's hand gripping hers tight. The air grew colder and cleaner. No longer the smell of old stone and dust. Something mechanical. Filtered. The passage opened suddenly into a chamber that stopped her breath. Lights. Actual electric lights running along the walls in neat strips. Climate control humming from vents she couldn't see. Shelves stretching the length of the chamber, organized with military precision. Freeze-dried food packages labeled by date. Water bottles in color-coded stacks. Medical kits sealed in plastic, each one marked with an expiration date still years away. This wasn't a shelter someone threw together. This was planned, engineered, built by someone who understood exactly what they were preparing for. On a metal desk bolted to the floor sat a logbook. She picked it up carefully, as if it might crumble. The handwriting was precise, obsessive. Dates, supply checks, maintenance notes. 5 years of entries, meticulous and regular. Then nothing. A gap. She turned to the last page written. They found out. Taking it all tomorrow. If you're reading this, they didn't. You'll understand when you find the rest. Use it to disappear. Use it to survive. Someone has to. M. 15 years ago. Someone had left this, built this, and then they were gone. She held the logbook to her chest and looked at her daughter. "We're not in the mine anymore," the girl whispered. "No," she said. "We're not." The bunker went deeper than she expected. Corridors branched off in directions that made no sense at first, left turns that should have led nowhere, downward slopes that seemed to contradict the mountain's geography. But everything was mapped. Every passage had a number stenciled on the wall. Every room had a purpose. The first side chamber held radio equipment from another era, dials and switches arranged like a cockpit, a transmission log in the same precise handwriting as the supply entries, dates and times and frequencies. Someone had been in here broadcasting to people outside, or listening. She wasn't sure which was worse. The next chamber was medical. Surgical tools laid out on trays, IV stands, a shelf of pharmaceuticals still in original packaging, dates suggesting they were fresh when placed. Whoever built this wasn't just preparing to hide. They were preparing for every way a body could fail. Her daughter stayed close. The girl's hand never left her arm. The fluorescent lights hummed above them, powered by generators that had been running in silence for 15 years. All that electricity, all that preparation, all that hope that someone might someday use it. Then they reached the vault. It stood at the end of a final corridor, reinforced steel, massive, the kind of door you see in movies about banks and government secrets. No handle, just a small slot where something could be inserted and a panel beside it, not a keypad but something more sophisticated, a biometric lock, fingerprint reader, something from the future that had somehow ended up buried in a mountain. Beside the door sat a single envelope, sealed, addressed in careful handwriting to the person who finds this. She opened it slowly. Inside, a keycard and a letter. My name is Marcus Webb. I was an accountant for the Department of Defense. I discovered something I wasn't supposed to find. Evidence of money that disappeared. Contracts that were forged. Officials at the highest levels who were stealing from the country while it slept. I tried to do the right thing. I went to the Oversight Committee. I filed reports. And then people came for me. I had 3 days before they could build a case against me. 3 days before I became a security risk. So I built this. I took the evidence. I took the proof. I took enough resources to disappear and never surface. I'm telling you this because whoever finds this, you're running from something too. I can tell by the way the world broke you. Maybe it was family. Maybe it was circumstance. Maybe it was a system that decided you were worth less than nothing. You're not. Use this to survive. Use this to build something better. The world needs people who still believe in doing the right thing. When I'm gone, and I will be gone, these resources are all that's left. They're yours now. Use them wisely. She read it twice, 3 times. The letter was dated 15 years ago. Marcus Webb was long gone, disappeared into a world that never knew his name. She slid the keycard into the slot. The vault door opened with a hydraulic hiss, slow and deliberate, as if it had been waiting for permission. Cold air escaped, the kind of cold that comes from deep preservation. Inside, gold bars, stacked in climate-controlled cases, arranged like museum exhibits. Rows of them, more than she could count quickly. Beside them, envelopes marked with dates, bearer bonds, cash in multiple currencies, dollars, euros, pounds, Swiss francs, jewelry in sealed plastic bags, diamonds, pearls, gold coins from countries that no longer existed, and a final message written on the vault wall in permanent marker. Use this to disappear. Use this to survive. Use this to build something better. The world needs people who do the right thing. She sat down on the vault floor, her daughter falling asleep against her shoulder. This wasn't luck. This was a gift from a stranger who knew, somehow, that someone would need it. 3 nights in the bunker. That's how long she stayed awake, sitting beside her sleeping daughter, staring at the gold and the cash and the letters from a dead man. The fear came in waves. What if someone found out? What if Marcus Webb's enemies, the people who hunted him 15 years ago, were still looking? What if finding this wealth meant painting a target on her back, on her daughter's back? She could disappear. The cash made it possible. $50,000 in small bills, a new name, a new city, another country maybe, Brazil, Thailand.
Somewhere where $50,000 went a long way and nobody asked questions. She imagined it, the two of them on a beach.
Her daughter learning Spanish, the mind forgotten, the past erased. But her daughter's name was on a school enrollment form. She had a teacher who knew her, a social worker who called every 2 weeks, attendance records, a medical file with her height and weight documented. The digital footprints of a life lived openly, even in poverty. If she disappeared, people would look. The school would report her missing. The social worker would flag it. Police would get involved. And then someone would ask questions about the mine, about the property, about why she'd suddenly vanished with thousands of dollars. She couldn't hide the gold and hide herself at the same time. The realization hit hard on the second night. The secret was too big to carry alone. It would rot her from the inside if she tried. She could feel it already, the weight of it, pressing down. This wasn't her burden to bear in silence. This was something that needed air and light and voices beyond her own. She made a choice that scared her more than the fear of disappearing. She decided to tell the truth. She started documenting everything. Her phone's camera became a weapon against secrecy. She photographed each gold bar, each envelope of bearer bonds, each page of Marcus Webb's logbook. She photographed the vault door and the sealed medical supplies and the radio equipment gathering dust in its chamber. She wrote out her own timeline, not embellished, not softened. The shelter, the mine entrance, the keypad, the discovery. Every detail of how she'd come to own something that nobody was supposed to find. She recorded the logbook entries on her voice memo app, speaking Marcus Webb's words aloud, as if that made them more real. As if saying them out loud made them a fact instead of a fantasy. Then she prepared for what would come next. People would think she was lying, a homeless woman with a history of desperation suddenly claiming she found a fortune in an abandoned mine. The skepticism was already forming in her mind. The lawyers would doubt her, the authorities would assume she'd fabricated the story. Her family, God, her family would smell opportunity the moment they heard. They'd try to claim it, they'd hire lawyers, they'd argue that the mine was family property, that anything found on family land belonged to the family. They'd smile and speak in measured tones and slowly strangle her claim until nothing remained. Or worse, what if the legal system decided that found property belonged to the government? That Marcus Webb's evidence of corruption made the bunker a federal matter? That she had no right to what was buried here? She sat in the dark of the vault, her hands shaking, knowing that transparency was the only path forward. Not because it was safe, but because it was right. Marcus Webb had done the right thing, and it had cost him everything. It had sent him underground, forced him to disappear, made him a ghost. But he'd left something behind, a gift for someone he'd never meet. That was the right thing. So was telling the truth about it. She took a breath. Her daughter stirred, and she began to make phone calls. She called the legal aid hotline on a Tuesday morning from the public library. Her hands were steady. She'd rehearsed the words, but when the receptionist picked up, her voice cracked anyway. "I found something," she said. "I don't know if it's mine, or if it belongs to the government, or if it's even real. But I need help understanding what to do." They connected her with a lawyer named David Chen. She expected skepticism. She got something else, curiosity. She told him the whole thing, the mine deed, the keypad, the bunker, the gold, the letters from Marcus Webb. She showed him the photographs on her phone. She read him Marcus Webb's logbook entries. When she finished, there was silence. "Do you want to keep it?" he asked finally. That wasn't the question she expected. "I want to keep my child safe," she said. "That's all I want." Something shifted in his tone. He stopped being a lawyer checking boxes and became something else, a person who understood that this wasn't about greed, this was about survival. "Okay," he said. "Here's what we're working with. Abandoned property law is complicated. Finders keepers typically applies, but the origin of the wealth matters. If it's tied to criminal activity, the government can claim it. If it's tied to a person who's deceased with no heirs, it likely goes to the finder. But the whistleblower angle, that's something else. That might involve federal jurisdiction. What does that mean? It means we need to contact the FBI. She didn't sleep that night. 2 days later, she walked into a field office in the nearest city with a federal building. David Chen was beside her. She brought the logbook. She brought the photographs. She brought Marcus Webb's letters.
An agent named Morrison listened for 3 hours without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair. "I'm going to verify everything," he said. "This is going to take time, but I believe you." That was all she needed to hear. The investigation took 5 weeks. She and her daughter stayed in a motel paid for by the legal aid office. It wasn't much, 2 beds and a view of the parking lot, but it was warm. She could breathe there. She could sleep knowing her daughter was safe. Federal agents sealed the mine. They descended into the bunker with equipment and cameras and specialists. They catalogued the gold. They verified the bearer bonds. They analyzed Marcus Webb's logbook against declassified records from 1998 through 2003. What they found was worse than she'd imagined and better than she'd dared to hope. Marcus Webb had been real. His evidence had been real. The corruption he'd documented had gone all the way to the Pentagon.
Contracts worth billions of dollars, funneled through shell companies, authorized by people whose names never appeared in public. When he fled, those people had hunted him. They'd frozen his assets. They'd destroyed his life. But he'd hidden the proof. And he'd hidden a fortune meant to silence him, money he'd been saving, money he'd meant to live on in exile. The FBI found his body 6 months later. He'd died in a small town in Costa Rica in 2008. Natural causes. He'd lived quietly. He'd never accessed the bunker again, which meant everything inside, the gold, the cash, the bearer bonds, had been waiting for 15 years, with no heirs, with no claimants, with nothing but a dead man's letter saying whoever found it should use it to do the right thing. The legal decision took 4 months, but when it came, it was clear. The property was hers. The bunker was hers. The contents were hers. Then the media found out. The headlines were everywhere. Homeless mother discovers fortune in abandoned mine. Whistleblower's hidden bunker revealed after decades. Woman finds gold where everyone saw only curse. Her family called within 6 hours. Her brother's lawyer sent a letter claiming the mine was family property. Her ex appeared claiming he'd supported her through the hardship and deserved compensation. A distant cousin surfaced claiming bloodline to the original mining claim. Her old landlord showed up in the news. The shelter coordinator who'd helped her suddenly wanted acknowledgement. People she'd never met began explaining, with absolute certainty, what she should do with money that didn't belong to them. Through it all, she said nothing. David Chen handled everything. The lawyers answered the lawyers. The system ground forward. And 6 months after she first stepped into that mine, freezing and desperate, she owned everything inside it. She rented a house in March. Not a mansion, not a demonstration of wealth. A simple house with 3 bedrooms and a yard where grass was starting to grow back. Her daughter picked out her own room. She picked out curtains with horses on them. For the first time in years, the girl had a space that was hers. School was different now. The teacher called her in for a meeting, not to report truancy or ask about missed meals, but to discuss advanced placement. Her daughter had been testing ahead. She'd needed stability to show what she could do. She needed a full belly and a warm bed and a parent who could breathe again. She had those things now. The foundation came next. She set up a non-profit with part of the money, named it the Webb Foundation, after a man she'd never met. She hired people who understood homelessness not from textbooks, but from experience. They opened a shelter, not a cot farm, a place where people could recover, where mothers could sleep in private rooms, where children weren't surrounded by the despair of strangers. Then came the press conference. She sat in front of cameras and reporters and people who wanted a story about luck or miracle or the American dream. She gave them something harder to understand. "I was homeless," she said. My family stripped me bare and told me I was worthless. I believed them. Then I found a place that other people thought was cursed. And inside that cursed place, I found proof that a stranger cared enough to help someone they'd never meet. That's not luck. That's legacy. She spoke about Marcus Webb, about a man who'd done the right thing even when it cost him everything, about a whistleblower who'd left a message for someone 15 years in the future. She spoke about her family and what they'd taken. She didn't demand anything. She didn't ask for apologies. She simply told the truth, then stepped away from the microphones. The people who'd mocked her, who'd celebrated her fall, who'd called her a liar when the gold was discovered, they watched from a distance. They sent letters through lawyers. They tried to claim what wasn't theirs. But it didn't matter anymore. She wasn't fighting them. She was building something. That spring, she climbed the mountain one more time. The mine entrance looked smaller now. The curse was just a story people told themselves. The darkness was just darkness. But buried beneath it was proof that kindness echoes across time. A stranger's sacrifice, made in fear and hiding, had become her salvation. And now she carried that forward. To other mothers, to other children, to everyone who'd been told they were worth nothing. The mine wasn't cursed. It was just waiting. She found more than gold in that bunker. She found proof that a stranger's courage can save a life they'll never know. Marcus Webb's gift, left in darkness waiting 15 years, became the foundation for everything that came after. Subscribe to see what happens when forgotten places hold the greatest secrets. When people no one believed in become the ones who change the world.